There are many aspects that make a character frustrating. They can be one-dimensional,
He's cheating,
insanely overbuffed,
Oh no, that was insane. That was so...
impossible to kill. But Tinker checks exactly 0 of these conditions. So how did he become the most frustrating character in all of gaming?
It is absolutely so stupid.
Tinker was permanently banned from this channel. I literally banned people asking for it.
High IQ Tinker Pickers, guys, what can you do?
To begin, we need to understand where this disdain came from, and for that we need to go back to Tinker's creation.
The universe, they will keep going. Bulbasaur smash machines up. Universe 3. They turn to Loda. Loda dropping low. Jail step back. Jail lives.
Luckily they're saved by the glimmer of lasers. He needs to go back in the shower room. Wants to hit Miracle now. A Miracle back to full HP. No they can be to cover. And BCM saved by the depth shot this time. And he's gonna destroy it. With a quick hex. Kuroki off the balls. Immediately in Samael. Has been scouted the tree. From Dragon to pick the court. OG will take this fight and win the game.
Tinker's toolkit and game plan remained pretty much exactly the same for nearly 17 years. His first ability is a laser beam that does a decent amount of damage and makes the enemy have a 100% miss chance for a couple of seconds. His second spell is a pair of rockets with insane range that once again deal a decent amount of damage. His third spell summons a march of machines that deal a small amount of damage to units they come into contact with. Okay, nowadays he has a shield instead of the march of the machines, but I'll talk more about that later. And then finally, his ultimate is probably the most disturbing idea ever imagined in a MOBA's history. Rearm resets the cooldown on Tinker's items and abilities. You remember that CPU fryer I showed in the beginning? Let's break it down. He used Blink, Rocket, Rearm, Shiva, Shiva, Blink, Rocket, Soul Ring, Laser, Rearm, Soul Ring, Shiva, Rocket, Blink, Ethereal Blade, BKB, Rearm, and that's just during the first 5 seconds. I mean, this looks really hard, but it isn't. So when your main item build is finished, you will usually have about 6 buttons to worry about. I'm also ignoring Tinker's third spell, the Defense Matrix, which creates a shield that absorbs damage, since you only really need to cast it once before the fight, or against very specific matchups. So the regular Tinker cycle looks something like this. Send your rockets at the enemy, if you're close enough use laser, blink into a new position, preferably outside of the enemy's vision, use Soul Ring, rearm, and while rearming use Shiva's Guard. And yes, for some reason you can use Shiva's Guard while you're channeling, and then you just repeat everything. But here's the fun part about it. You can mix up the order quite a lot. You might look at this and see it as an opportunity for creativity, and as something that would increase the skill required to play Tinker. But don't worry, that's generally not the case. Unlike other heroes with wide decision trees like Invoker and Brewmaster, with Tinker, as long as you got the Blink, Soul Ring and Rearm somewhere in there, you can't really go wrong. Okay, fine, he might not be as complex as he looks, but that's not a reason for people to hate Tinker. If you just ask Dota 2 players why they dislike Tinker so much, which they do, a large portion says it's because he drags out games. Why people don't want longer games is a discussion for another time, but guess what? People are wrong. Sure, historically Tinker has had the second or third longest average game, but at the time of recording this, he's ranked 18th in average game length. So no, despite what you might think, length is not an issue. Instead, the issue lies somewhere else. Have a look at this quick clip. Do you see what the issue is? Of course you don't, because he's not on the fucking screen. If you somehow were able to react to the microsecond that is on the screen, guess what? you're unable to move from his two massive, and I mean massive AoE slows. Almost any hero in the game in any scenario will be put at the lowest legal movement speed in the game. Oh, and did I forget to mention he has the ability to stun 2 heroes for half a minute if he buys Hex, adding an ability to refresh all item cooldowns and all spell cooldowns is insane, and I think in any other game except Dota it would be completely unreasonable to keep in the game. In reality, the only reason the Tinker hate is starting to boil right now is that he has been historically very weak, and only after some recent buffs is able to really display his frustrating, uninteractive self. Okay, well, if you've stuck around this long, I might as well teach you how to deal with this monster of a hero. Okay, so picking counters against Tinkers is very effective. Static characters like Zeus and Nyx, or more mobile, interactive heroes like Spectre or Anti-Mage can be incredibly useful. But I understand that in pubs you don't really know if the enemy is going to pick Tinker or not. Instead, what I personally think it's all about is that you have to have a lot of tempo in the game. Tinker's win rate scales pretty exponentially the longer the game goes, and at level 27 he has an 80% win rate. That might not sound a lot, but that's across all brackets, across all games. If he hits like level 27, level 28, it's just GG basically. You need to have put a lot of pressure on him, preferably before he hits level 18. That's one of his huge power spikes, level 18. While it might be hard to kill the actual Tinker, I think it's very useful to punish the rest of the team. I think the intuitive way to deal with Tinker would be to try to chase him, try to jump him, try to focus him every fight. And while I think that is important and a good thing to do, Tinker isn't going to lose if you kill him once or twice. Basically, no matter what happens to Tinker, he will scale. He can't really fall off when he gets his Shiva's guard. So you need to play and punish the other heroes. The best way to kill a Tinker is to push in the waves. If Tinker doesn't feel safe to TP into lanes and farm the waves, then he's gonna have a really bad game. And not only is Tinker going to have a terrible game, but his team is going to have a terrible game, because he's going to have to pretty much farm an entire half of the team's jungle. Tinker wards are a must, I highly recommend it. But also, if you can get some invis like Lina Shadowblade, that can be hugely effective at catching him and killing him, especially earlier in the game. With that being said, I wish you luck on your adventures in Dota. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.